Hello, my name is Oliver. Welcome to my workshop. Now, this video is going to be a Q&A video, and these Q&A videos are going to become more of a presence on this YouTube channel. And the reason for that is, as of late, this channel has exploded. So thank you to everyone who's been recommending these videos to their friends, and thank you to everyone who has subscribed, will subscribe, and has been viewing forever, and new people. Hello everybody. Thank you to you all. You're all amazing. That explosion in popularity of this YouTube channel has caused me to have to reevaluate things, because up until now I have replied to everybody's comments individually. I've made time for you all. There is now so many of you all that I can't do that anymore. I'm spending an inordinate amount of my time answering people's comments and questions, and that's time that can be used making videos, basically. So, or working on the house, or working in the garden, or spending time with my family, or whatever. So I'm going to use my time more efficiently, because obviously I can't make more time. And part of that is that I'm now going to be doing answering your comments videos. So I'm still going to read all of your comments. And this has been a really difficult decision for me to make, because I love my comment section. You're fantastic. You're superb. I have the best comment section on the internet. But I just don't have time anymore. So instead of answering everybody individually, I'm going to answer you all and read your comments and questions in videos just like this. So let's get stuck in, shall we? Right. Will Pierce says, state of the barn tour, ? Okay, the barn tour is the old name for what is now building your dream. And it's been building your dream for like a year. So it just shows that Will is a long time subscriber. Right. My house next door, if you don't know, if you're new to this channel, this workshop and my house and everything is all off-grid. This is an eco workshop, and the lights are powered by solar panels on my roof, and I get water from a well, and I'm building a sustainable environment for me to live in. My house next door is a barn that was in a mess when I first bought it. The low light on this Hero 5 isn't the best, but there's food troughs over this side, and there's food troughs over this side behind this table, and little tiny windows, and the ceiling, and this ceiling's going up, and we're going to have a door in this area. The kitchen's going to be at the back, little living room, and obviously being a barn, it's got about 100 years of what used to be poop. This will be our workshop. And up here, Rob, is our upstairs and our roof. And we're going to raise the floor up to about here-ish. And I've been doing it up, and I sporadically make videos about it on this channel. The state of the barn is completely unchanged since the last barn tour video, unfortunately. Simply, I need a bunch of stone before I can do anything else. I need a load of stone. I need cut stone for the sides of my windows, for my bedroom window, the kitchen window, and the back door. I also need lintels for the kitchen, my bedroom, and the back door. I've got a lintel for the back door, and I might have one for the kitchen, I'm not sure. But I need a load of stone, basically, and it has to be local stone that's in keeping, not for planning restrictions, it just has to be for me. It can't look like new modern machine cut stone. It has to be old-fashioned stone that looks right in the house, because obviously it's visible from the front of the house, it's visible from the back of the house, and it's visible in the house. So it has to be right. Unfortunately, because of all the lockdowns and stuff, today is lockdown number 3. Hey, French national lockdown number 3. But, unfortunately. But it means that I haven't been able to get the stone, so I haven't done any progress on the house. because I can't put floors in and have them get wet because there's no windows, and I can't put windows in without having the lintels and the stone for the sides. The reason I need the cut stone for the sides of the windows is so that the walls don't do this, and things shift around. It has to all be right, and so I need to get that in before I can do any more work. So I've been using the time that I would have spent working on my house, helping my mum and dad with their house because they're my neighbours, and my parents' house is in a lot better condition than my barn. It is their place is actually a house, but their place used to have. I'm not going to show you their house because it's nothing to do with this channel. It's my parents' house, but their house has a different roof than my house, and that needed repairing from the inside, and they needed insulation, and they needed stuff, and so I've been helping them get to a good stage with their place and try and help them with that. So I've been working on houses. I just haven't been working on my house, just because I can't. Del UK says, he basically says, will I be able to move in by winter into the barn next door? I hope so. I don't know. At this point, I know where I can get the stone that I need, but I can't get it because the person who has it is stuck outside of France. Or the person that I hope has it is stuck outside of France, and I haven't been able to get it from anybody else thus far. I have talked to a bunch of people, and it's a big undertaking, and unfortunately it's just not doable at the minute. As soon as it is doable, I'm going to do it, but I don't know. At the minute, it's out of my hands, so I've just had to accept it. It's not ideal, but at the end of the day, me getting upset about it is like getting upset about the weather. Like, it's not going to change it, is it? So I might as well just be patient and accept it and work on the things that I can work on, like the land and like Pandora and making videos and stuff. So I don't know. I'd like to be moved in. I really would. I'd love to be in my house. I dream about it. I daydream about it constantly. Unfortunately, Dan says, what's lurking in the garage mezzanine? A Chesterfield and a few dog-eared Calvin and Hobbes ? Okay. My mezzanine upstairs in this workshop, it's more than a mezzanine. It's actually a mezzanine, and then there's another floor above that. This workshop is on 3 floors. Okay, so currently, as you may have just discovered, I'm not living in my house. A lot of my clothes and stuff for my house, some furniture and stuff like that, is up there. It's on the mezzanine. Eventually, a lot of the big tools, things like the drill press, will live upstairs. And so that we'll have a bigger workshop area for more stuff, because this workshop is as big as it is. Once you put 2 cars in here, you quickly start to run out of space. So we're going to have more workshop upstairs, and the top floor is actually storage. So that's full of Pandora bits. It's got paint, it's got plumbing stuff, it's got house building stuff, it's got shelves with screws on and stuff like that. And it also has a big water tank, because that's going to be the water tank for my house. Autoverse and Drew from The Trust in the Machine both ask, what's the first road trip I have planned with Pandora? The first place Pandora is going when she's finished is England. And the reason is she's a British car. And the whole idea of Pandora is to be able to come between France and England with ease. And so she has to go back there and be inspected and the whole thing. And then Mary, my partner, really wants to check out England, I really want to visit my grandparents in England and all that. I don't know whether that'll be in that road trip. She also really wants to see the north of Scotland for some reason. So we might go up to Scotland. I don't know. There's a bunch of shows and stuff that I'd love to check out in England. There's so much stuff I want to do. That's one of the coolest things about Pandora. That's one of one of my motivations with Pandora is there's so much that I want to do and so many places that I want to drive it and so many videos I want to make with this car. And I can't wait to be doing all of that stuff. One of my main goals is going to the Alps. I've lived in France for quite a while now. I've been coming to France my entire life since I was a tiny baby. And the one place that I've never been, other than Paris, I went to Paris last year. I've never been to Paris, and I've never been to the Alps. So, one of my big goals for Pandora is a trip to the Alps. And then to put Matt Monro on the radio and then drive down Alpine Road with Questi giorni quando vini il bel sole playing in the background. Yeah, I'm going to do the whole thing. It's corny, but I'm going to do it because it's all so awesome. And it's just the stuff of dreams, isn't it? I'm gonna take the supercar that I built to the Alps, and I'm gonna drive them down, listening to Matt Monro, and make some videos, and it's gonna be awesome. So yeah, that's one of my big goals for Pandora, and one of the first road trips I want to go on. William says, if you were forced to sell Jolene and buy another quirky, fun, and easily maintainable daily vehicle, what would it be and why? So, if I had to sell Jolene today, I don't know why I would, but if I had to, I wouldn't be able to afford another 2CV because since I bought Jolene, the price of that specific model of 2CVs has skyrocketed. And so to find that car in that colour would just not be doable. So I think I'd go for an Ami 6 Estate. It has the best interior of any 2CV. It has my favourite 2CV engine, which is the M4, which is the 602, but it has the same heater as the 425 engines. And it has a bit more torque and a bit more power, and Ami 6 is slightly better on the motorway than Jolene is. So that'd be nice. I would lose my soft top, but I would still have a hatchback and I'd still have folding seats. So, yeah, Ami 6, I think. For a fun daily that's really usable. Great is the World says, what is that coating under your hood on Jolene? That coating under the hood in Jolene is really cheap sound deadening. One of the previous owners, when they bought Jolene, they put the world's cheapest, nastiest sound deadening under the bonnet. It's something that I will get to one day, but just not yet. But yeah, it's a pet peeve of mine. It's actually one of my least favourite things on that car. The roof and the roof, the paintwork, and the underbonnet insulation are the cheapest, nastiest ways that they could have been done. And one day I'll pull Jolene off the road, probably when Pandora's up and running and working and I can daily her for a little while. And I'll bring Jolene into the workshop and we will go through Jolene from front to back and give her a bit of a restoration and give her a full respray and freshen up the engine, put a new roof on her and all of that. And when I do that, I'll do the underbonnet insulation. So yeah. That's what that is. It's a bit tatty and it's a bit not nice. And it basically looks like one of those blankets that you put down when you paint a wall. It's not nice. But yeah, that's what that is. Right. Spegru's Garage says, why is the body different colours? Filling in the gaps between the sections is going to be fiddly. Talking about Pandora. Okay, the reason Pandora's panels are different colours is because they're off different cars. Pandora was crashed at least twice and was in a large fire. I have photos from after the fire and they are not pretty. But that's the reason. Pandora was restored, well, no, repaired by one of the previous owners and repaired really well. Actually, it's a really good job that they did. I have a funny feeling, I've never talked about this on the channel before, but years ago I met a guy who had a GTM and he said that he was driving what used to be his parts car, and the reason why he was driving his parts car is he was making an awesome GTM that was set on fire in an accident. I have a really strong feeling that I've met the previous owner, maybe the first owner of Pandora. I have a funny feeling, and I'm not sure, I can't confirm or deny, but yeah, I have a funny feeling. And yeah, she was just in a fire and she was a mess, and somebody fixed that and did a really good job. This actual wing has a piece of balsa wood on the inside. It's a really early, this could be original Cox GTM or Hero GTM. This bit could be GTM Coupe, and the bonnet, I have a feeling, is GTM Engineering, which are some of the companies that owned GTM over the years. However, Pandora is registered as a Cox GTM, and I've got a couple of different badges for her. So I don't know whether she's a Cox GTM, a Hero GTM, or a GTM Engineering GTM. I don't know, and I honestly couldn't tell you. But that's the reason why she's multiple different panels, because she's been repaired with multiple different GTMs, and that's one of the reasons why I'm not timid about doing what I'm doing, and making a new floor pan and with an integrated roll cage and putting a big Honda engine in it and doing everything that I'm doing, because this car could never be original again, and it's an opportunity to do something awesome rather than just imitate somebody else's work. Right. Neil McHardy says, you have the same issues as my son, who's 6'5" and a size 14 feet. Yep. Could you not make a tank which fits in the centre tunnel? They're talking about the fuel tank. No. That real estate in the tank is actually going to be taken up by more than just coolant lines and brake hoses and stuff, and I just haven't told you about it yet. But I have big plans for the centre tunnel. And the problem with centre tunnel mounted tanks is you have got to put really big baffles in them. You've got to put big walls to stop the fuel sloshing around in the tank, because when you brake, all the fuel in the tank would slosh to the front and make the car front heavy. Then when you accelerate, it would all slosh to the back, and it would be like one of those 1990s office toys with the blue liquid that sloshes from side to side, and it could make for big dynamic problems. And lightweight cars are the best thing ever. Weight is the enemy of progress, innovation, fuel economy, efficiency, performance, everything. The lighter your car is, the better it is. But one of the big issues with lightweight cars is they are more susceptible to dynamic weight imbalance than heavy cars. So, no. I'm going to just put the fuel tank in the front, but I'm going to make sure it's behind the axle line. Phil says, I'm a relatively recent viewer and watcher of your videos, so I apologise if this is already covered. Interested to know a bit about your background and how you came to be living in France. Have you ever done a project like Pandora before? No, I've never done a project like Pandora before, but I'll answer the first thing first. I'm English, obviously, and I grew up in Spain, and I've always wanted to live in rural France. I spent a lot of my youth here, and I love it here. And so I've always wanted to live in France, and I've always wanted to build cars, do stuff with cars, and I never thought I could. When I was a little kid, I always wanted to be an archaeologist because I love history, and that's one of the reasons why I love old cars. I think if we don't learn from the past, we are destined to repeat it. It's that old thing. But I never thought I'd be able to do what I do until YouTube started, because I'm really dyslexic. Anyone who follows me on social media will know how dyslexic I am. And I never thought I'd be able to be a writer to do with cars. I've always loved car magazines. I'm one of those kids who used to get car magazines and read them cover to cover. But I never thought I'd be able to do anything like that because of how dyslexic I am. And then when YouTube started, I've never been a video maker or a photographer or anything. But then when YouTube started, I was like, oh my God, this is the opportunity that I've been looking for my entire life. And I jumped on it, and I learned how to make videos, and I learned how to do lighting and edit, and I'm still learning. But it's an opportunity for me to do what I've always wanted to do, and everyone I always met my entire life have always said, oh my God, you need to write a book. Well, I can't write a book, you know what I mean? I can't write a book on building houses, but I can show you all in weekly videos, so that's why I do what I do, and that's why I am here. And I've always wanted to build a car like Pandora. The idea for Pandora started when I was teeny tiny. I was a little kid, and I went to a track day and saw a GTM, and I loved it. And I wanted a GTM, but could never find any for sale, and so I thought I'd never be able to get one. And so then I turned my attention to designing like a cool Mini. When I was like 12 years old, I used to sit and scribble in a notebook on my way to school, ideas for a fast Mini, and then, you know, you grow up and you do stuff in life, and then I was looking at projects after the first lockdown, and I found Pandora, and I was like, now is the time. I've got a background in fabrication, in both steel and wood and all sorts. But I've never built a car before. Luckily, my entire family are engineers and artists. And they, all my life, told me, don't be an engineer and don't be an artist. Be anything that you want. You can be anything you want to be, except an engineer or an artist. For various reasons. And so I've ended up kind of both. And I'm building a car that I've designed, and doing engineering and art. So, yeah. But I've got the skills to do it, and I've had to learn a lot to do it, and I'm learning new skills to do it. But no, I've never built anything like Pandora before. I've also never built a YouTube channel before, and I've never, itchy nose, I've never built a house before, but I'm doing it. Gabriel Pouliard says, it's amazing how rust-free the underneath of your 2CV is. Don't they put any salt on the roads where you live? They do, but they don't put salt on the back roads. There's A roads, B roads, and D roads, and I try and stick to D roads. Not just because my 2CV enjoys driving on them. I enjoy driving my 2CV on them. They are slower roads, they are twisty, they are rougher in many cases, and they have a lot less traffic on them. And I try and stick to D roads where possible. And in winter, I don't use the motorway at all, because unless I can really avoid it, because it is super salty here. And main roads tend to be salted, so I try and stick to back roads. Luckily, the back roads were here before the main roads were here, so I can pretty much go wherever I need to and be traffic free. Not that there is much traffic, because I'm in the least populated part of France. Scott Vickers says, I so love seeing the car come together. I was pondering the issue of the weight disappearing from the fuel engine, and so throwing off the weight calculations. What about a tank of liquid in the back that had the same tank? A tank of liquid in the back that had the same as the tank in the front, and when fuel was pumped out of the front, the tank of liquid emptied into the tank of liquid in the back emptied into the tank in the front. I think that's what you're saying. Though, amazingly, when I made the Mura problem video, there was a bunch of people who suggested things like sliding weights and stuff like that in the car to rectify the weight imbalance of fuel being drained from the front. But it's not a problem. As long as the fuel tank is behind that front axle line, and I can actually move the tank. I can move the tank back into the centre tunnel a little bit at the front. and I can have the 50-litre tank that I want without throwing off the balance in the car. The cool thing about moving everything within the axle lines, the only thing on Pandora really that's going to be rearward of the axle line is the exhaust at the front, at the back, and at the front radiator. So that's it really. Everything else is within the axle lines, and so because all the weight is central, any dynamic shift in that isn't going to make a huge difference. And if everything goes according to plan, when the screen wash bottle's full and the fuel tank is completely full to the brim and the spare tyre is in and everything, it should be slightly, only by grams, but it should be slightly front heavy. And then when I start using her, then she'll be pretty much 50-50 weight distribution. But if everything is full, I will be driving a long way. And in that case, there'll be stuff in the boot as well, because there will be a small boot in this car. Believe it or not, as small as it is, I should actually be able to fit things like a spare wheel and luggage in. Luggage. It might be 2 rucksacks, but at least it's luggage. Luggage. And I have a cool idea for more luggage space, so you'll just have to look forward to that. Paul Campbell Music says, how come you have managed to get so much done on Pandora? Is the barn finished and habitable? The barn is not finished and habitable, as I mentioned in a previous comment. The reason I've got so much done on Pandora is because Pandora is my pandemic project. I bought her after the first lockdown because I knew this health crisis wasn't going anywhere quickly, unfortunately. And I still wanted to have a job. I love making YouTube videos, and I really want this to be my full-time job. I don't exactly make a full-time wage, but it's growing massively, and it's grown massively since I bought Pandora, and you all seem to really like these videos. And you like when I work on Jolene and stuff, and I've really enjoyed coming to work. As much as I enjoy reviewing other people's cars and stuff, but there's something really nice about coming to work at home. And today is the start of French national lockdown number 3, as I previously mentioned, and so I can come to work at home and have a home office and still make videos, and that's amazing because there's a lot of YouTube creators that are really struggling, and there's a lot of YouTube creators whose business model, for lack of a better word, whose video model, so they make nature walk videos, or they drive other people's cars or whatever. Even the people who make video game videos, the Let's Play people, who I have big respect for actually on YouTube. It's a much harder thing to do than people give them any credit for. But even they're struggling because video games aren't coming out with the frequency that they previously were, so they've got less to make videos of. So yeah, Pandora is my pandemic project, and because people are enjoying the videos, I want to keep up the pace of the videos. I want to keep up the progress, because when I first made my first few videos, people the videos got loads and loads of views, and then I had a problem with my pipe bender, and I had to have like a month of other videos that weren't Pandora videos, and then when I made another Pandora video again, kind of the views came really slowly, and they've built up slowly over time. And as much as I don't make videos for views, I still want to be successful. Of course I do. You know, I still want people to enjoy these videos and be seen by as many people as possible. And YouTube has a lot to say about that, the YouTube algorithm and all that. And so I've had to build back up the viewership of these videos over time. And we're now at a place where they're getting really strong views. I'm getting more views on this channel than I've ever got, ever. And the growth of this channel is just incredible. So I just really want to keep the momentum up and make more videos for you all to enjoy. And because everyone's enjoying Pandora so much, that's what I'm going to be doing. And because I can't work on my house and stuff, it's nice for me as well. And obviously I'm doing something that I've always wanted to, so that's amazing. Becco1969 says, tell me more about the wheel and tyre choice on the coupe, Pandora that is. No. No, I'm not going to tell you about the wheel and tyre choice on the coupe because it's a secret. Well, it is a secret until I tell you. The reason I'm not going to tell you is that I've put a really lot of work into figuring out the wheels and tyres for Pandora, and I obviously, just like the rest of the car, I want it to be as good as possible, and I want them to be in keeping with the car, and I want them to fit the car, and I want them to be the best handling wheels possible for Pandora. And so I've put a real lot of work in. And so you'll get to see them, but you'll get to see them when this car goes on the ground finally, and when it becomes a rolling chassis, which won't hopefully be that far in the future. So I will tell you, but not today. DJ Carrot Spencer says, if you were to get another 2CV, what size engine, van or saloon, etc.? If I was to get another 2CV, I don't think I'd go for another saloon because I've got Pandora. And it's the best 2CV. The 63, 64 with the 18 horsepower is my favourite 2CV. I like the 50s cars, don't get me wrong, but they're not quite as usable. And I don't think I'd have two vehicles that do the same job. If I got another 2CV, I wouldn't get an Army 6, same reason, it's the same job as Jolene. I'd probably get a van. And I'd get an M4 van. So a mid-60s 2CV van. The overlooked ones that not a lot of people want. The reason is because they have the exhaust that goes forwards. So they've got the really good heater. They aren't the fastest thing in the world, but it would be really good just for putting wood in and stuff like that, and people freaking out at me that I'm actually using my car in the manner intended, as people do with Jolene. You know, it would be a work van basically. And yeah, if I got another 2CV, that's probably what it would be, unless another 2CV finds me that just needs a good home, and then I would be happy to give it a good home. So yeah. If in the future I get another 2CV, there was at one point almost another 2CV on this channel, but it just needed a home, and I would have given it one and loved it and made it beautiful again. But yeah, a van. If I was to go out and spend serious money on a 2CV, it would be a van, because I have Jolene and she's perfect. Well, she's not perfect, but she's perfect for what I need. Alex James says, I've been wanting to design my own car, then build it one day, but I could do with a few pointers. Any advice? I went about designing Pandora the way that I designed my house. I looked at my needs, I looked at what I wanted from the car, and I looked at what I wanted to do with that car, and then how I could best meet that list of requirements. Start with a notebook and make that list of requirements, and then figure out the best way to meet those requirements. Then make a mood board. People often, I get emails from people all the time asking me advice about houses and asking me advice about cars and about kind of keeping momentum through a project, and I always tell them to make a mood board. And the one thing that no one ever does is make a mood board, right? It sounds like a weird hippy-dippy housing decorator thing to do. A mood board is basically where you go through magazines and stuff, and you cut out pictures and you stick it to a board, and you put it in a really prominent place in your house where you can see it all the time. When you make a mood board of all your inspirations, you're motivated, it keeps you thinking about it, and it pushes you forward. Not only that, but you can look at similar vehicles to what you want to build, and you can think, well, a Miura has a similar engine layout to Pandora, but what are the problems with a Miura? You know, is that going to influence Pandora? Yes, it will. I can look at cars like the Stratos and stuff like that and think, well, how is this going to influence that? or their problems or their compromises that I can avoid making. And not just think, the way that a lot of people talk on the internet, they always go, well, I want to put this engine in this car. It's the wrong way to go about it. That's kind of a tuning mentality. And if you want to put an M3 engine in a BMW, that's the perfect mentality to have, because those two things are pretty much designed to go together. It's not a big deal. But the best way to do it is to think about your requirements from the car and then meet those requirements when it's something obscure like Pandora. So, for instance, I didn't just think, well, I want a K-Series and I want to put a K-Series in a GTM. I chose the K-Series because it has a cable gear shift, because it is correct for the weight distribution and the weight of the car. It has the water passages on the front of the engine, so the water passage, my water lines, go straight into my centre tunnel. It's designed to fit. It could not be a better fit for a GTM. It makes way too much power, and that's a problem that I've had to now solve. But other than the fact that it makes way too much power, it's perfect in every single way. And it even weighs the same as the original mini engine and allows me to use better suspension with the fully independent double wishbone front and rear now, because we're going to use the MX-5 front stuff. The MX-5 stuff was chosen because it avoids the mirror problem. Yes, it's one of the world's most, well, it is the world's most popular sports car, but I chose it out of a list of different suspensions. I could have used anything, but I chose that. Well, not anything, because I do have a limit with the height of the bonnet and stuff like that, but I could have used relatively any double wishbone setup, but I chose that because it fit the build perfectly. It wasn't a personal choice of mine to use. It was a choice, but it wasn't just like, oh, and I want to use MX-5 front uprights. It was the perfect thing for this car, or is MX-5 front uprights, if that makes sense. It wasn't just, there were reasons for every choice I've made, is what I'm trying to say. And they are really valid reasons. It's not just preference or because I like the colour or anything like that, you know what I mean? One of the problems that you see a lot on YouTube cars, I have to be very careful about what I'm saying now because I don't want to upset people. Because there's no reason to do that. But one of the problems you see on internet cars, on Instagram builds, on YouTube cars, is people making decisions based upon either aesthetics or just because they wanted to use this thing. And, oh, that'll do, kind of thing. So for instance, they have a gearbox, and the gearbox is by one company, and then they choose to use uprights from another company that's a completely different company. And so then they make an adapter to a drive shaft that's from a third company, and then they have to make an adapter on that drive shaft to the upright from the second company that then goes onto a hub. All because they wanted to use a bolt pattern for a certain sort of wheel. That's not the way to go. And you could, bolt patterns, you can get wheels in every single bolt pattern. And so if there's a drive shaft from a company and a bolt pattern widely available that's the same as your gearbox, make it all match. Otherwise you end up painting yourself into corners and end up putting a bracket to a bracket to a bracket. Bolt-on stuff is cool when you can get it, but it's not always the best way. And sometimes using manufacturer parts that are actually designed to go together from the beginning is the best solution, because otherwise you end up making compromises. And building a car to look a certain way is not the best way to do it. For instance, with my suspension and stuff like that, the track width of Pandora is dictated by the drive shafts, not because I want it to be a certain width. I wanted to keep it as narrow as possible for my roads, but it's dictated by the width of the suspension, and that's it. And the drive shafts and all that. It's not because I personally wanted to make a wide arch GTM. It's because the mechanicals dictate that. But stuff that works always looks right, and stuff that works always looks cool. That's why racing cars look cool. Racing cars aren't designed to look cool. The coolness is a byproduct of them working well, you know. And I don't want this car just to be a show car. This isn't going to be trailered to a show on the back of a trailer and then sit in a museum or sit at a car show. This actually is going to be driven. It's going to be my personal car. And so if I make a bad car, I've made my bed and I have to sleep in it and I have to drive that bad car, and I don't want to do that. I want it to be the best it can be. So, in short, a lot of research. I've got my dad who's superb, who's an incredibly talented engineer, who was built, you know, everything from jet engines to prosthetic legs to rally cars to tilting trains. I mean, the man is incredibly skilled, and he has decades more experience than me. And not only as an engineer, he's a tool maker. So he makes, you know, his job used to be making stuff for huge engineering companies. When the engineers don't have the right tool, he's the engineer's engineer. And so when that man tells me stuff, and when we sit together and when we have conversations about the car and when we talk about it, it's in my best interest to listen. And a lot of people don't do that. You know, it's like being on Grand Designs, building your own house, and what's his name, Kevin MacLeod, who's a historic building restorer by trade and has built, you know, he's built more buildings and restored more buildings than the people building the house have had hot dinners. That man has decades of experience. So when he talks, you really need to listen, you know, and that's the thing. If you consult an engineer, and if you're going to build your own car and you're not an engineer, if you're not a mega engineer, even if you are an engineer, consult an engineer, because it's always better to have another set of eyes on something. They might pick up a problem that you've missed. When someone who really knows what they're talking about says something, you listen. You know, I in researching about the K-Series engine, talked to a bunch of K-Series owners and a bunch of people who have built K-Series engines, who I know are reliable and who I know are good. And actually they were a superb source of information. Raven on Twitter. I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of your Twitter handle. But Raven on Twitter, she was an absolute gem. And I talked to her because she's one of my Twitter followers who has, and I follow her as well, but she has a supercharged K-Series, or had a supercharged K-Series at one point. And so I talked to her and she's like, right, here are a bunch of Honda manuals, and she's an electrical engineer, and I'm not an electrical engineer, and I know nothing about electronics really. It's not something I've ever done. But and she sent me a load of wiring diagrams and stuff that are like the factory wiring diagrams, and are the electrical engineer type wiring diagrams, not just the sort that you get in an owner's manual. So people can be a superb resource, and asking advice can be superb, but you've also got to learn to listen to that advice and not just think that you know everything. And that's something that I've had to learn building this car, and being humble is a huge part of it. So thank you all for watching this video. I hope that you're into this new idea of doing comments and questions videos. I think I'm going to try and make them as bonus videos, and I'm going to try and not make them super long, but I also want to answer all your comments and questions, and I think it's a perfect place for it. So thank you all for watching. Please be awesome to each other. Please subscribe if you're not, and I don't know why you've got this far into a video if you're not already subscribed, but if you're not, please subscribe, and thank you for getting this far into the video, because most people don't. So thank you all for watching, and remember, if you can't afford your dreams, build them, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.